Unmasking the African truth, the African way, and retracing the steps of gallant African indigenous spiritual heroes and heroines, we speak without favor and we leave no stone unturned. AHV, 100% indigenous African content.
Welcome to another explosive episode of our podcast is African Hidden Voices. African Hidden Voices is a research institute that seeks to look at everything African and anything African. In our previous episode, we explored the issue of language preservation, language death, and its relation to spiritual identity. In today's episode, we are engaging on a very topical issue that has to do with statutes and regulations that affected traditional health practitioners in the apartheid South Africa. For instance, the Suppression of Witchcraft Act of 1957. We're also looking at current regulations that are affecting traditional health practitioners in the current South Africa, looking at the Traditional Health Practitioners Act of 2007. To our viewers out there, please note that we are promoting our book, African Introduction to African Indigenous Spirituality, which you can find at all Take a Lot platforms and also exclusive books. To help me today to unpack this subject, this topical and very emotive subject is Zenani Ndwandwa, who's going to be helping me engage at looking at these statutes that are currently affecting traditional health practitioners. Zenani, welcome to our podcast as AHV.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sbanda. I'm truly honored to form part of the African Hidden Voices podcast.
Okay, and for our knowers out there, we call them knowers, our viewers out there, we coined a term for you. We are now referring to you as our knowers. To our knowers out there, who is Zenani?
Zenani Ndwandwa, Tisuka Eastern Cape, Ndungumankwali, Opogola Umkwanazi. I've been an activist. I've always been an activist ever since I started my varsity years. I was the deputy chairperson of ANC Youth League, the acting chairperson of ANC Youth League UFS branch, student parliament council member, now currently the South African Youth Council regional executive committee member in Zenani, the Eastern Cape. I'm also the secretary of the Traditional Health Practitioners Forum for my local municipality.
Mm-hmm. All right, quite an impressive CV that you've got there.
Thank you.
Maybe in terms of the topic that we are engaging today, maybe for our knowers, for the benefit of our knowers out there, your journey is a spiritual person. How has it been? Where did you start? I know you've mentioned to our knowers out there your leadership and academic background, but in terms of traditional health practicing, where do you fit in terms of that space?
Okay, let me give you a background, which is a bit personal. I started having dreams at a young age. And then I never took it seriously because I had a Christian background, very Christian background, which is now Pentecostal. I studied and completed. Immediately when I got to university, which is my first year, I got sick. I was in and out of hospital. Doctors could not diagnose me. However, because we had a Christian background, we knew no other alternative. So I continued with studying. And unfortunately, I was not able to complete my degree because I was always the sick child in varsity. I was always suffering from anxiety, but there was no correct diagnosis of it. Up until a time where someone said, but this is not normal. Go see someone. And then now it started making sense that actually I have a calling. I had to now go back to my roots. And then now the journey started. And it started now as a young person who had no background of a spiritual identity in the context of being African. But now my identity was now through Christianity. So I had to do a lot of unlearning and relearning. And I had to take time off from Western ways, which is now my academics, to now start this new life of now not only learning ukwelapha, but also to understand how nature works, how society works, and how it works in the African context. So my journey has been very difficult because I had to let everything go. I had to start from scratch. I had to be stripped off of everything that I knew. I think the only thing I have left is the English, but everything else is gone. Now that I am in a better state, I feel that I am ready to go back and complete my degree, which was now a BA Governance and Political Transformation. So in terms of politics, spirituality and ukwelapha nobungoma, it is difficult because we are confined and we are restricted. We are not able to practice ubungoma betu in certain areas. Now, and Suki is lalini. I don't come from a village. I live in town. Now in town there are forests that are owned by the state. But if I go there, mhlambi ngiyokha amayeza, kuzawufika iveni yamapolisa to say that I'm transgressing. So now I'm proving that, look, I mean no harm. I am here to do what my ancestors sent me to do. But now there are restrictions. You will find that whenever you go to certain areas and you are dressed in this manner, you are deprived. Kukho imfukamo that we have to do in certain rivers. Now you find that this particular area and this farm where this river is, there resides a person who owns this farm.
It's private land.
It's private. So now umntana or myself, I dreamt of this place. That mandiyofukama apa, but now I am being removed because it's not state owned, and they will not understand that I'm not here to do any harm. So those are the kind of challenges that we are experiencing as Ubungoma, but we are far better than what our predecessors went through during the time of apartheid, during the time of oppression.
Okay, so I want to find out, you've touched on a very personal issue in terms of your journey in African spirituality. And how it has impacted you personally, and how you had to unlearn and relearn some of the stuff that you were probably growing up taught from, as you've mentioned, from a Christian background. I want us to explore that aspect in terms of how the experience came about, how you transitioned from all this here, the knowledge that you had, especially coming from a Christian background, transitioning into something else. The English would say morphing into yourself. So maybe for the benefit of our knowers out there, maybe explore for them that transition.
All right. I was vilified on social media when I accepted my calling because I was very close in the ministry. I was very close and I was very dedicated. So the first area was having to grow a thick skin because now I know I have a spiritual experience of what I'm going through. So I was not then willing to let go of it. The journey was very difficult because I had to lose friends. I had to lose the church, and now I had to still appeal to my church mates that, look, I am not evil. I am not a witch doctor. I am just following the way of my ancestors. So I am no harm to you. And that led to me having to continuously find myself finding a church. And in me trying to find a church, it still did not speak to my ancestors because it was in relation to accepting the son. But now in the process of that, ndandivukwa ngabantu abadala in the church. And I was even told at some point that I should leave my beads at home. Perhaps they are disturbing me. And then I should wear them when I come back from church. I did not settle for that because my ancestors were a part of my life that I was not willing to compromise on. Yes, I was willing to go attend church, but if I find that something derogative is being said about ancestors here, I leave. To a point where in the year 2022 I stopped trying to live for pleasing abantu to say that I delete right. And delete right. I'm not here to cause any spiritual harm to you. I'm just here to serve the Holy Spirit at the time. I'm here to serve the Holy Spirit and then I go back home. That's what I thought. Yeah.
And you interestingly, in the previous episode that we had when we hosted Lusanda Matikana, when we spoke about language preservation and spiritual identity, how religion played a pivotal role in making sure that it is a catalyst towards the death of indigenous languages. You speak about the community that you grew up in, the church, and probably maybe friends and schoolmates as well that you grew up with. When you accepted your calling, and we know there's certain terms that are used, I mean, those terms themselves, I mean, some of them carry a colonial connotation. Maybe for the benefit of our knowers out there, let's unpack that and how it relates to you. I mean, you're called a witchcraft because you have accepted who you are as an African child with a calling that your ancestors have bestowed you.
Surprisingly, I used to call traditional health practitioners witch doctors as well. And that also, now that I am in this journey, it had to take me cognitive dissonance. I had to now let go of my former knowledge of what a THP is to accept this new knowledge of what a THP is. I mean, that is what Frantz Fanon once said. With regards to witches and witch doctors and traditional health practitioners, I think this was orchestrated by the colonizers during the time when they were drafting the THP Act of 1957, which was also informed by Witchcraft Suppression Act of 1957, which was also informed by an act that was enacted in 1892 by the Cape Colony. So Ikokupilis was the act that was already existing in 1892. So now that act described our practice as witchcraft because they could not understand it. They thought it was magic, and then magic was witchcraft. So then that term grew, that whenever you are seen doing something different or something that is extraordinary, something that an ordinary person or human being cannot do, it would then be deemed impossible. And witchcraft then meant that Tina masithi xa sikwazi ukwenza ezi zinto sibizwe ngamagama that are going to undermine the act, that is going to annihilate it, so that it becomes extinct. It will not have its power if it is now deemed as witchcraft, because now everyone will want to do away with it. So I think that is how we grew into. So from 1957, what was deemed a practice of our ancestors, which was pure, was then vilified, was then undermined, and then now no one wanted to associate it because of the assimilation that took place during the times of apartheid.
And those labels that were used by colonial powers and the apartheid government, how do they because they carry a certain stigma. Even up to today, I mean, if you are practicing Sangoma, people have, a misconception of what, a Sangoma is. It's associated with the then labels that the colonial powers, ascribed to practitioners then. In your experience, how is that impacted you? You spoke about the community, the church. We will look at then the role of government in also further subjugating, the role of traditional health practitioners, which we term THPs in short.
I believe government, when we speak of government, we also speak of media, because there's a BCCSA.
Yeah.
I think something loses its power when you stop entertaining it. Now, the current shows that are taking place that endorse ubungoma have not been portraying ubungoma in a good light. If I were to now, if I had not twasat, and I approach my parents to tell them, look, ndinentwaso, and then they watch a TV channel,
Fake gobelas, for instance.
fake gobelas, they watch other shows, they will be discouraged, because now the idea that they have of ubungoma is linked to what they see on television, and not the pure and clean side of ungoma, which is now to reverse generational cases, to ukusebenza ukwelapha ngokwendlela ngokweqiniso njengoba inkosi moya ika ngokusifundisa. So media has played a role. So now when people, even Christians, it will be very difficult for them to soften up when it comes to us, because they will not come from wherever from where they come from, bangeni ndumbeni. Oh, actually, Zenani, no, what she's doing is proper. But they will make reference to what they see on television and what is televised. I think we should stop entertaining the TV shows that speak on a bad. I mean, Uktwala is made something that is free.
Commercialized.
It's commercialized. Ubungoma umntu athi no, amathwasa ndiyawabiza ngenkela. Whereas dala umntu would find a way to their gobela's house through a dream. Or maybe they would be unconscious, as Bonnie says in Darwin. That is the power of our ancestors. But Tina say we are reducing it to mere commercial TV, which is 30 minutes, and forgetting the substance that we are trying to change a generational narrative that was once negative, and we're trying to paint it in a positive light.
Okay. There's a very powerful term when in academia, when somebody else looks at facts, substance over form. That's what they call it. You often look at the substance of something other than the form or its generic form. You're touching on a very crucial part of what THPs are about, in light of what community, the media, and government portrays them to be. The negativity that is associated with traditional health practitioners. We often see that there's this phenomenon, tatalento ayinabungozi, izokusiza, iyaphilisa or something like that. I mean, that phenomenon itself, ma kukhulunywa ngokuthwala, it's not something that is positive. Inobungozi indaba yokuthwala. But in media, and through other, THPs as well, that perpetuate that narrative because of, materialism and, money gains. How does one then come to, control some of these things here, especially the role of media? You talked about, don't give them attention. But not giving them attention, is that enough? Are you as a THP saying maybe there are other avenues that need to be explored in order to make sure that people are given the right information and people are informed that look, ubungoma is not only it's not African indigenous, it's part of African indigenous spirituality. African indigenous spirituality has so many elements, and ubungoma is part of it. And in anything we're taught under African indigenous spirituality that there is good and bad. Right? But the good has to trump the bad. It is to outweigh the bad. So in light of that, your experience as a leader and also a traditional health practitioner, what needs to be done?
Okay, as an activist, I usually heard in Moya, Babu Zuleze City, Izangoma. They kept African indigenous spirituality alive. Why and how? You know, there were no institutions like Ubabeka ngokutsho, but there were no institutions. And because there were no institutions, Ubungoma had imigidi, had inkombe ngokwesiXhosa, where people of the village would gather bayobuka namagqirha kuxhentswe, and they would call upon their ancestors. Inkombe zazigala indima yokuphilisa idea yabantu abadala that they exist. So inkombe are still a pivotal role. Now we need to ensure that as associations, as organized formations, we are able to ensure that information iyaphuma. As leaders of associations and organized formations within the civil society, we need to ensure that we play a role outside of media, because abantu bakdala abathwasile, they are not privy to social media. Social media represents only a fraction of the population yenyangi zemveli abelaphi bendabuko. If we were to go to the trenches, have an engagement with them, inform them of everything that is currently taking place, have shows, dala kwakho kwisketch, just to portray, have an acting session where abantwana just portray ubungoma, portray like ityala lamawele. There used to be such shows kudala where they were saying that kukho umuntu othethayo entabeni asimboni ngumdali, and lithi eli lizwi kuzawufika abantu ze nibamamele kodwa ningabamkeli, uyabo. So that was also part of ukubonisa ukuphila kwabantu abadala, ukuphila kwe-deities ngela xesha, because babesithi ingaba lukhona uvuko labantu abafileyo. So we need to ensure that we keep these stories alive. When I watched Ityala Lamawele, I never understood what it meant until I had to retrace. I had to watch it now that I'm older, so that basically the message here meant this. So we need to ensure that the message is siyayihambisa. Even if you see umuntu othwasayo, zithobe. Cama umuntu omdala unjani? Ndinguzenani ndisuka kwindawo ethile. Do you know that there are institutions that may help you? There are institutions like IAFIS. There are institutions that are many in our society that can help you keep in touch with matters that are affecting ETHPs in our country today.
Interesting enough. I want. As you were talking, I'm looking at the role that government is playing in all this here to try and academicize, the role of traditional health practitioners, or, in loose terms, to westernize, the role that traditional health practitioners are playing in society. I remember doing a research where they were saying the United Nations is actually saying in South Africa, close to about 80% of the population use traditional medicines for health. Which is a huge number. And when government does not then play an active role in order to make sure that they incorporate traditional health practitioners under the health ministry, it becomes a big problem. Now, in terms of your view, where do you situate the role of government in terms of THPs, especially in the current state?
Okay, Bob Credo once mentioned that foreigners will come and occupy, and we shall be the slaves. I'm not quoting it accurately, but he mentioned something of that sort. You'll find if you go to certain stores here in South Africa that they are selling and retailing African medicine from their own countries through importing and exporting. They are not approved by SAPRA, but it's an area that is not yet regulated. So what needs to be done by government is to ensure that we are registered that they support traditional health practitioners. And when they support traditional health practitioners by ensuring that they are accredited, how do they ensure that they are accredited? Through consultation. They must consult organized formations to say that, look, we are trying to draft something of the sort. Nithini nina. And then we tell them as THPs what we want. Sibe consulted because these acts, they do not reach the lowest of the people. And they don't even know mhlawumbi, that maybe there's going to be a registration that is going to take place. Maybe they do not even know how to acquire the correct documentation. But uthole ukuthi umuntu wathwasa ngo-1957, they do have amava, they do have the wisdom, they do have the knowledge. However, they will not have access nabo to retail medicine, traditional medicine, ngokwendlela that is approved by council or by the Department of Health or SAPRA, because bona abafikeleli to information. So the government must consult THPs, organize formations, so that we lose each other, to find each other. We engagement is it together with the council and the minister that is now in relation to the National Department of Health. Because it's not that we do not want these things. We also want to enter hospitals. When they are not able to find a diagnosis, we want to be in the database to say, call us. Sifike, sibhule, sichaze inkinga yomuntu. Mhlawumbi, sizawuthi makagoduke, ayokwenza into ethile, aphile umuntu. Uyabona? But we are not able to do that. I mean, ETHPs are able to doctors, for example, medical practitioners, ask what is wrong. You figure, hey, oh, belitheni, beliwile. However, traditional health practitioners, ufika ungena endumbeni uhlale. Xa uhleli phansi uzakuxelela ingxaki yakho, and then wena as the client uyabuza. So that is something that is divine, something that is it's based on spiritual experience, because you can't put it into words, you can't write it on paper form to say that, hi, this is how I do it. This is how I hear my ancestors telling me messages. We may try, but it will not be in its completion.
Okay. All right. Government, I'm still going back on the role that our legislators play in regulating the THP space. The draft regulations of Traditional Health Practitioners Act of 2007. For the benefit of our knowers, can we unpack what the draft regulations are? What are the pertinent issues that traditional health practitioners need to look at, especially relating to the current draft regulations? I'm sure they will be enacted into law very soon. But we know, as you've mentioned, most of THPs are people that have not attended school. Some of them can't read and write. So information might not reach them. But for the benefit of our knowers, probably maybe that are interacting or know THPs, what are the pertinent issues that they need to be aware of, especially relating to the current draft regulations?
All right. So there is a Traditional Health Practitioners Act. The act is long. It has several sections. Speaking of selecting council, the draft regulations that are currently out speak specifically to Section 21 of the THP Act, which is registering and forming a curriculum of traditional health practitioners. Now, it unpacks a registration to say that it will categorize inyangi zemveli into 3 groups. The first group is a traditional health practitioner. The second group is a student, itwasa. The third group speaks of an institution, a training institution. The training institution speaks about okobela, because now they will be training amatwasa. Now this regulation, it is still a draft. It's not formalized yet. It says that itwasa must have twasad for a period of 12 months. A traditional birth attendant must have practiced for 12 months, for 24, which is 2 years. A traditional surgeon, those responsible for circumcision, must have trained for 2 years. Now, those are the pertinent issues. Now, there is a fee that is attached to it. When you are a THP, you are to pay 1,000 rand, and then you renew annually. ITWASA pays, it registers in 200 rand and renews in 100 rand annually. Ekobela registers in 5,000 rand, but renews annually in 1,500 rand. Those are the proposed amounts. However, through the submissions, they were rejected and the new amounts were brought forward. Now, it says that ITWASA must have a logbook. Now, it does not reflect or maybe speak to those who have currently finished UKUTWASA, lender your logbook. All that you have to do when you register as a THP, you must submit all your information that NdaTwasa, this was my Gobela, Denza Lena na Lena. So now they want to form a curriculum to say, here is a standard curriculum of Ingulo. You must be able to ukhola, you must able to mix herbs, you must able to. So basically now they are trying to say this is a standard way of uktwas. Now coming into logbooks, if nditwase phansi kwamanzi, how am I going to, who's going to sign that logbook? Because now nditwasiswe ngabantu abadala phansi kwamanzi, so and there will be no proof. The only proof that will be there is amanqina, which is now abantu bokuhlala. So there are a few flaws or loopholes in the THP Act as far as representing inyangi zemveli. Also, it speaks about ukuthwasisa. Ukuthwasisa kumele uthi xa uzawuthwasisa mhlawumbi nawe ube ne-documentations zakho. You must have accredited documentation to say that you are fit to train this person. That is the only segment of ETHP draft regulations that are there. They are referring to the section 21, which means registration of THPs. Now, there's a registrar. When you apply to the registrar, you must ensure that your documentation is correct. If it is not correct, it is the duty of the council to say no. Revisit these documents. We cannot take you in. And now there's also an age gap to say that you can only be a member of the council if you are 18 years old. The argument that emanated from that means that, but in the 2010, the response was, yes, ungathwasa 10, but you will not be able to enter a council up until you are at age 21. And it says that you need to have had education of ABET level 1 to be able to form part of council. So those are the flaws, the loopholes that people, there's an uproar about, to say that you did not go back, you did not go and consult us with regards to education, with regards to age. So now if this child is able to ukthwasa gqibe at age 11, so does that mean that if this act is now active, and passed in parliament, does this mean if this child is caught practicing, they will be arrested because they are not yet part of ETHP council or what? So those are the questions that we have not yet received, as per the engagements that we had with the interim council. So yeah.
Sure. It's quite sure a lot of issues that are pertinent to THPs. Maybe when I discuss or engage, I like taking things bite size. Maybe let's start from the top, looking at the THP Act and the draft regulations relating to Section 21. Starting with the council.
Yes.
Who constitutes the council? How are members drafted into the council?
Remember, when I started, I said that Act is long, and there are regulations for each segment of or for each section. There were draft regulations that came out where nominations of councils took place. Now, from my understanding, it says that the council or the interim council consists of 22 members. The first member of council, which is the chairperson, has to be a traditional health practitioner. The second one is out of the 22 that are nominated. They do not have to be a THP. But fortunately, here, he's also a THP. I just forgot his name. And then now, after the two, 9 members are elected, and they have to be THPs as well. But they should come from all 9 provinces. So each province has a representative.
Okay.
And now, after that 9, there has to be a legal fraternity of this council. There has to be a medical fraternity from the HPCSA. And there has to be a person who represents the HPCSA. There has to be members of community, because they state that these traditional medicines are consumed by people. So they need to hear, and they need to provide input as well of these There's also an HR department. There's also a marketing department, I'm sure, to ensure that there is a widespread of information. So the council consists of 22 members, and they are spread amongst the different categories that I've previously mentioned.
And the nominations, I'm interested in that. Who qualifies to nominate somebody into council, especially the top echelons of that structure?
I think because it was the nominations were published in the government gazette.
Okay.
It is all members of society.
Okay.
It is all members of
so it's
society.
society.
Yes.
At large.
Irrespective
of. But in my mind, I'm thinking about public participation in all this here in terms of reach. Does either the HPCSA have reach, SAPRA, Ministry of Health? Do they have enough resources to make sure that THPs, especially in all provinces in the rural area, where they are aware that there is such regulations that are come, and they have to participate in the nominations?
I think for them, HPCSA is the closed council. The legal council, legal practice council is very closed as well. But they tried. The mechanism was to visit provinces. They conducted road shows where they were inviting THPs from from local municipality up until province. The mechanism, though, might have been sufficient, because I, from Queenstown, know what is in the draft regulation. But now, Queenstown is a town which has villages.
Yes.
I do not have the resource to visit those villages. Ndihambise ezindaba zezento. I do not have the resources to go to another village, Elinge, continuously to spread these regulations. So they spoke to THPs. THPs went back to their respective places. Now, the problem with that is there's also misinterpretation. We are not all going to grasp the regulations. Now we've sparked fear. Now there's unrest. So and there's only one spokesperson. That is set to speak on behalf of the council. So then we are not able to then say we don't have resources to speak. Maybe the radio must intervene. Maybe TV must intervene. However, hearing the comments of people that have been speaking, they speak negatively against the regulations. There's always comments to say that No, but how can you say asifundanga? Funeke sifunde. Because akekho umuntu onqwenela uthwasa.
Yeah.
It is a gift
It's
that
a
you are
calling,
given
yes.
by your ancestors. And when you accept it, you are accepting it not knowing that you will be restricted ngenxa ye-education yakho. Whereas ngebazi ke banika abafundileyo
Yes.
le ngulo abazokwazi bona ukuyitranslate.
Yes.
So as far as reaching, they spoke to THPs, they consulted associations. They consulted associations, but I don't think it was enough because there's still unrest. There's still a lot of submissions, for example, are closed. And we did not know because information ayidifike kumntu wonke because we are not all privy to the internet. We don't all have radios. We
Yes.
don't all have phones. So there's still a lot of work that needs to be done to ensure that ziyafika kwiinyangi zemveli zonke emhlabeni jikelele.
Yeah. Especially when you look at, when you talk about acts, it's Roman Dutch law, and the language that is used there, the medium is English. And in my mind, I'm thinking, Fukobela or Sematatiele, Islalin, for instance, they're not aware of whether there's such regulations that have come out. Even if they are aware, the interpretation of the regulations themselves, the English or the language that is used there, you need somebody else who's got, who's gone through academia and the rigors of the laws of the country to interpret and understand. So for them, it might be a challenge to actually understand and interpret. If that public participation was not that far-reaching, how then does council come and say, no, we've done public participation, we've consulted, and therefore we are closing this chapter, therefore we are constituting a council?
I think what they did, I do not think I know, they translated the regulations into all 11 official languages.
Okay.
However, it's still complex. I think it gets, for example, I cannot understand the regulations in my home language. Speaking of language, the previous podcast was about. Language is very difficult because now is a law, but now in your vernacular, in your indigenous language. So kubenzima even to understand it. And now lo muntu akafundanga. Funeka kube kumuntu ozawuthetha. Again, it becomes a challenge because usikabone eza price. Xa kusithiwa draft regulations akazi we understand that ithi kusabhalwa akukagqitywa. So those are the challenges that we went through, that they went through. That is now how they tried to reach out. There is a Chivenda regulation, there's a Sesotho regulation, there's a Setswana regulation, and there's a isiXhosa, there's a isiZulu regulation. But still, if Nyani, it was effective, there would be no unrest if indeed Nyani, we were informed and consulted properly to say that sisabhala sisasubmita masibhaleni. Let us protest ngokubhala sisonke so that nezi groups esimane sifika kuzo siyafika siyabhala sifaka submissions. So I think that is as far as they went in terms of ensuring that abantu public participation ikhona ngokuyi-translate into different languages.
Okay. You mentioned an issue to do with registrations and certificates that Okobela have to give you as ITWASA for you to be incorporated into the council. I've got a little bit of a challenge. How practical is that going to be? If for instance, in ITWASA and I'm struggling to pay my Kobela, I'm struggling to. How am I going to get registered if I have issues with my Kobela in terms of fees that I have to pay? And
fees are not the only issues that Twasa may experience with a Kobela. There are many implications. I mean, you always find that people baleke pikwin. Abantu can be after it look Twasa, they break ties, they cut ties. Now this Kobela is meant to be my point of reference, but avela ataya kandas. That will now prohibit me from receiving this certificate. So I think that's where ubungqina, customary law will come into place because ikomkhulu, the traditional leaders should know that uthwasile because uthwasa in their rural area. Usbonda, which is now the headman of your village, should be able to know to say that no, I am witness. Abantu bokuhlala should be your witness to say that okay, what thwasa nyani, but now let us now not focus kugobela, but let us focus on sasikhona. Sambona yobuya mhlambi kumfukama, sambona ethatha ichoba lakho kwabo, sambona esebenza. So I think nabo they should be flexible in that, to say that maybe the training institution may change or may not exist, but now bukhona ubungqina to say that no, nyani lalikhona igqirha lalinje, but now it is refusing igqirha to send out the information that is going to assist me into getting into to the council. Now there's also a crisis to say that kukho abantu who are selling medication, like I said, who are not from South Africa, who do not even have the legal documentation to state that they are South African citizens, but they are thriving and selling meat. So the registration is for that regard. But how are we then going to ensure that these people are not going to register maybe through other means? How are they not going to register? How are they then going to practice? How will government, now Department of Health will issue these certificates? Now who will be patrolling our towns to say that these people are selling meat, but they do not have the necessary documentation? Or is it going to be a matter of now let's know I'm practicing, but no one is going to
monitor and police me.
Police me. I'm still selling, and I will continue. So who is going to regulate even that aspect of a traditional medicine, to say that mainga things were stratwing? It must be packaged in a way that, or stored in a way that when a consumer buys, it is of a standard that is of quality, quality assurance.
I'll come back to that point. But before I come to that point, especially when you look at traditional medicines and government regulation, but before I get there, I want us to go back to the point of when we talk of traditional leaders. Are they incorporated in the regulations in terms of what you are explaining, the hierarchy and the witnesses, to say, no, if a Gobela says to me, no, I don't know this Twasa, I've never trained this Twasa, but there is a fallback position in terms of, the hierarchy of traditional leaderships, the kings, the chiefs, and, the other elders in the community, to say, no, but actually we know that this person was in your homestead and you have trained them. Is that aspect, incorporated in the regulations?
Okay, it's not on the regulations, but there is a member of council that is a traditional leader who I hope has advocated for his constituents to say that we need to also have a voice with regards to this, because remember, with Witchcraft Suppression Act, the act itself said that whoever comes to accuse, let me accuse you, Didi hi, Dr. Sbanda, undiloyile. So now, if I were to make such accusations and you die by any chance, maybe, you will be arrested. I will be arrested for accusing you of that. So that act then lost elapunga, because ipunga kwakuxoxwa kwikomkhulu, kwakuxoxwa kwinkosi, i-court yethu kudala was inkosi. So that was stripped away from us. Now I don't think they have become a credible source. Hence we need associations like IAFIS. Hence we need associations like House of Traditional Leaders to say that istima African spirituality must be hierarchy, so that even our voice is credible within that. But in terms of the regulations, I have seen no. Maybe they will say that affidavit in courses of affidavit to state that, but it is not on paper. It's not written. It's not written anywhere in the draft regulations.
Interesting. Okay, I'm coming back to the point of traditional medicines and regulations. Well, I mean, I'm just a scholar, an academic, but cognitively, I'm thinking to myself, I'm trying to process this. How is it going to pan out? I dream of a herb. Mboniswa ngabantu abadala ukuthi no kumele ngilande this herb ukuthi ngiphilise somebody else, and government comes in and says no, for us to acknowledge and recognize that this herb is certified, maybe it's, for instance, like HPCSA certifies that no, this herb can be sold or can be used. They want you to detail how that efficacy works. How udetaila kanjani into eze ngethongo? Maybe from your experience, for me, I'm struggling to reconcile that aspect. How do you prove efficacy of something that came through a dream? How do you scientifically say I'm proving this when it's something that has been informed via ithongo?
I think a solution for that, because I don't know how, but a solution for that would be to ensure that intellectual property is protected, so that we do not find ourselves sithengisa ngengulo yethu ngeprice encinci. Imagine we pay to register kwi-council and then still sibanike information yethu. So we need to be protected from that, to say that we are not supposed to be writing of that. We must only be taught maybe basics. Basics, I mean standard procedure, like your normal herbs. But as zinye, since we are certified, we should be given the benefit of the doubt that indeed we know what we are doing. And it is in the interest of our consumers, if we are to speak it in commercial terms.
Okay. All right. Another aspect that I want us to look at is the fees. How practical is it that, given that when we look at THPs, it's different gifts, and resources-wise, they might not have the same resources, and the fees that are being proposed. I think for me it's a far stretch. Some of the THPs might not be able to afford those fees. What's your take on that?
Remember, I mentioned government and media. The THPs that get traction on media are those who are flamboyant. Perhaps it has set out a perception that we are all rich. And let's not forget that they are fixed in cities. They are situated in cities. Dynamics are not the same. Provinces do not have the same issues. Here you have access, you are urbanized. Tina, we are rural. Cape Town also has different, and maybe crime. Uzawuthengena mhlambi umuntu esalapha umuntu xa ephuma la mntu kungene umuntu protection fee. That is the current state of our country. And then now you are expecting me to cough out 5,000 le isandothathwa nge-protection fee. Maybe now I have to go to town to find a river. It's eating from this money that I have. And now mhlawumbi asithwasisi nge-amount efanayo. Omnye uzothwasisa nge-50,000, omnye uthwasisa nge-20,000. Now this 20,000 should last me maybe for 3 months. How am I then going to be able to afford these fees? So it goes back to the perception that is portrayed by media when it comes to THPs. Maybe there's an assumption that we are rich and wealthy, whereas we are not, because abantu baziswa ngabantu abadala ngexesha labo. It's also to provide us an opportunity to teach the government that this is all controlled by our ancestors. I mean, uyinyangi yemveli yokwenyani. It is all guided by our ancestors. We do not choose anything. We don't even select the price. If bethanda bangati 500, I know an institution where you only ukhanyisa and get coins. So now how do you expect all those coins to now make up 5,000? If Nyan is only just silver coins on a daily basis. So those are the dangers of allowing certain images or certain lifestyles to be portrayed of THPs, because bas better song.
Very challenging. And lastly, you mentioned AFIS. If there are THPs out there that are watching us on our podcast, how do they get in touch with AFIS to be part of, affiliates to lobby against government for such regulations or against such regulations? Yeah.
Okay, because we are on a podcast that is online, I assume that they have Facebook. There's a Facebook page for the AFIS, which is African Association for Indigenous Spirituality. It encompasses not only traditional health practitioners, but it brings in a variety of sectors that form part of civil society. It includes traditional leaders, it includes scholars, it includes THPs. So it's not only focused on Inyanga Zemveli, but on other issues that are pertaining to protecting stigmas, the African indigenous spirituality, and also promoting it so that it is seen in a positive light.
Okay. All right. On that note, I would like to thank you, Zenani, for coming and, sitting with us and engaging with our audience and us in terms
knowers.
of the knowers, yes, the knowers in terms of the legislation that relates to THPs, current and previous regulations, the Suppression of Witchcraft Act of 1957, and then the Traditional Health Practitioners Act of 2007. On that parting note, thank you very much. And to our knowers out there, please don't forget to like and subscribe on our podcasts. And also don't forget to get a copy of our book, best-selling book, by the way, Introduction to African Indigenous Spirituality. You'll get the book on all Take-A-Lot platforms and all exclusive bookstores. On that note, thank you for joining us on this podcast, and see you next time.